Utah is well positioned to literally be a global leader in critical minerals. We have them. The session hasn't quite kicked off, but all the pre-meetings are going. So maybe just kind of an update, a preview of what we got coming. I just left a meeting with the Business Coalition. It's a lot of the businesses, kind of the key players up here, and meeting with the Speaker of the House and kind of get a feel of what's going on and what's happening. So I took a few notes and thought, well, we'll just share so you can kind of get a feel of what's coming. He started the meeting with a fairly long discussion, how important it was and how good Utah has been at looking to the future, that going long time before him, and he's hoping to follow that trend, is that the Utah legislature has always looked 10, 15 years into the future. So they deal with now, they also deal with the future. The reason he had this discussion is because he worries that some of the new legislators that are being elected are super conservative. And on a lot of fronts, I really like that. They make good decisions that help business, help our business. They do what is useful. The problem is that they are so conservative and their decisions are so narrowly focused on today that they're not making any accounting or decisions that will impact tomorrow, the 10 years from now. And so he worries about that. He made a big plea to us as businesses to say, look, serving in the legislature is hard. It's a big commitment. It's a sacrifice. Business owners, we should be looking at people within our companies or companies we deal with that could be good lawmakers and helping find a way to help them get there. It takes a lot of time. He also, one of his big focuses this year is just regulation. And he's speaking for the whole caucus and saying, they have recognized we have a problem with the regulation. We need to get our arms around that. They do believe Utah is better than most states. He believes we have issues and we need to look at it, even if we're having an issue at the local level. And he's looking for specific areas where regulation is a problem. And he wants specifics, and he wants them brought to him and say, here, we're going to solve them. I think that's two fronts. One, he will help solve that immediate problem right now. He's developed a great relationship with the White House. So if we're building a project somewhere and we're having EPA issues, for example, and we can't get permitted, or we're getting held up on something because we're too close to the river or too close to the lake or whatever it may be, the White House is eager to help with that project. Also, he wants to help more systemically. So if we have a problem, he will help work with the agencies and change those agencies, which would be very beneficial. But again, he wants specifics. We've got to bring him stuff and say, look, here's what's going on. Here's how we change the specific agency. We've already done some of that. We will do more. I will continue to ask all of you to bring that. One of the things kind of on that same line that I thought was really interesting is they're going to go to all of the state agencies except for higher ed. They're leaving higher ed out because they kind of beat up on them pretty hard the last couple of years, but they're going to ask for 3 to 5% cut in just their overall budget. Our economy is changing, and every now and again, you just have to tighten your budget, and they believe it's time to do that. So that will be their ask. We'll see how they'll do it. They're going to push it down to cities and counties as well, saying, everybody has become bloated. We've had some good years. Looking at like critical minerals, his belief is that Utah is well positioned to literally be a global leader in critical minerals. We have them. We need to be able to work on getting them permitted and being able to get into the mining. We've got people at the White House that are saying, bring us a project, we'll get it permitted. It was pointed out by somebody from the mining industry that they can permit a mine in like Australia or Canada in a couple of years. For us, it takes decades. They do believe Utah is better than most states, especially on the mining area, but he believes we have issues. He was asked directly on housing, but basically he says, look, it's hard to do a lot with housing. That regulatory, what they do, how they decide where it is a local issue, which is a fair statement. The problem is when you have locals that refuse to make the changes that address it as needs be, land use is still a state issue, and the cities still are a subdivision of the state and should be carrying forward some sort of a state vision. Believe that at some point the state's going to have to step in and say, cities, we need you to do this. Maybe not give them the exact details of how to do it, but they're going to have to push and say, we need to get building permits faster. We need to get homes built faster. We need to not have a local city be the barrier. So I would have liked to have had stronger language on that, but at least he's aware of it and considering it, it fits in that bucket of regulation. So anyway, that's Again, quick preview, things will start coming fast and furious here in the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned. Hey, another fun year with the legislature. Interesting year. This year, we'll see, I believe, a lot of housing bills, a lot of interesting things that will come up. The different legislative bodies have polled the public, us at large, and said, what are your primary issues? Affordability is the number one issue. Housing affordability is the number one issues. That seems to be top of everybody's mind, is that it's impossible to get into a house. And what do we do about that? So obviously that's going to be a concern. Many legislators are going to have bills. We're going to talk about it. We're going to do a lot of things there. Speaker Schultz has actually come out and said it's his top issue as well, that he sees the importance of affordability in general. But obviously housing is one of those bigger expenses, so it's going to be a big issue. But he's obviously going to be very supportive and push those kinds of bills. The problem is a lot of the issues we have to deal with in affordability kind of go after certain sacred cows for certain people. The cities specifically, there are things that we believe as an industry need to change, and they need structural changes to give us the ability to produce more affordable houses. But in order to do that, it strikes at the heart of their what they call local control and their authority, the little kingdoms that they have created. We're saying, no, you have to loosen up a little bit and let some of the free market come in and say, here's what we're going to build, here's what the public wants, here's what we can do at a more reasonable rate. That will be the tug of war this year with the legislatures. They've got to decide, what are we going to do? What are we going to allow? What makes sense? Will the free market go too far? And does it just become a big profit center and still doesn't help profitability? Have the cities gone too far and their draconian rules make it so that it can't happen? All of this has got to get sorted out, and we'll see as the bills run forward. So the first bill of the session to kind of test what we're going to do as far as this tug of war between private properties rights and local control of cities was tested today. I mean, we're just getting started with the session, and already we had a bill that came out. This is a bill that is sponsored by Representative Tom Peterson. And what I thought was an easy bill, slam dunk, go right through committee, and we're off on our way. It actually stalled out in committee, hasn't died, but it stalled out. So instead, they just moved past it. Representative Peterson agreed to get with all the stakeholders and that we would work on this moving forward and try and solve the problems. So here's the bill and here's the conflict. The bill was fairly simple, that if your home is in a wildland urban interface area, and for those of you who aren't total geeks like me and don't know what that is, that's where the forest comes down and meets the city. And we have the risk of those huge wildfires that we saw in Colorado, kind of in California, but there are kind of some different nuances there. But where you can get a forest fire, so to speak, that gets such magnitude, hit houses, or the houses can start the forest on fire, and it can create a firestorm that's pretty uncontrollable. So we have the Wildland Urban Interface Code that says if your home is in one of those areas, there are certain things you do to fire harden that home. You build it in a certain way. You create what is called a defensible space, meaning you take any of the combustible, the fuel load, and you move it away from the house. So if fire does start in your house or starts outside of your house, there's not a direct path for that fire to move either direction. It seems like a pretty intuitive approach. The problem is we have a lot of cities that say, no, we want to control what people's landscaping is. And so they prohibit landowners from creating that defensible space. It was fascinating to me that we had to have a law that says a landowner who wants to remove the bushes, the shrubs from around touching their house, the very edge of their house, they can't do that. The city can tell them, no, you can't do it. Here's what your landscaping will look. Or if they have trees that they would like to prune back or cut down, and again, create that defensible space, these municipalities come in and say, we won't allow that. And again, just at the onset, that seemed odd to me that in our form of government in America, that we don't have, as private property owners, the right to say, here's what I'm going to do with the landscaping on my property. Apparently we don't. And the cities argued that we can't do that. So I talk about that there's going to be a tug of war. Welcome to the tug of war. We are arguing that a private property owner should be able to do whatever they want within reason that doesn't harm their neighboring property, just by virtue that they own the property. The cities believe that they have this overarching control that can dictate to a property owner what they will do with something as detailed as your landscaping, where and what kind of shrubs you plant. So meetings have been set up. We'll see where they go. But at least for now, that bill is stalled out. Hey, check it out. So this year we've got you can see behind me the new state building, where they tore the old one down. That's been under construction what seems like forever. Finally done this year. Should make it better. Parking's better. Everything's better up here. So I wanted to just touch base on a bill that we talked about a day or two ago. We talked about this bill that would allow a property owner to change their landscaping to eliminate the fire hazards, to remove those fuels from near their home if they were in the wildland urban interface. And the cities opposed the bill, ultimately paused it, and we had to follow up with some meetings. I had the meetings, and actually it's been a couple of days ago now, and I guess I was fascinated, puzzled, I'm not sure how to say it, but the city's big concern was, well, if a homeowner is given the ability to clear that fire fuel away from their home, what's to stop them from just going in and clear cutting everything? And I guess in my mind, you just as a property owner, you're going to do whatever you can to make your property look nice. And if you really feel like you're in an area that you're so fearful you should cut everything, maybe it makes sense. I don't know. And it depends on the size of the lot and a whole bunch of things. I'm still puzzled with the fact that somewhere along the line, we have reached a point where we believe that government's job is to tell us how many bushes and where they're placed in our actual lot. But that was the discussion. It was the argument. It was fairly long and kind of contentious. I think that they've arrived at some sort of a compromise, and we'll see when the language comes out, but that it would allow them to do it, but only if they were actually in the wildland urban interface. So if you're in an area that's high risk, but it's not the wildland urban interface area, you wouldn't be able to do it. The city would be able to prohibit you from doing that. So we'll see how the language actually comes out. But just in general, it is a concern to me. I think at some point we need to start looking at what our city officials, who do we elect and what is their intent, that there should still be some private property rights that we just inherently get because of the Constitution that says, no, I get to use my land the way I want, within reason. We shouldn't be able to harm our neighbors. Anyway, interesting bill. We'll see where it goes. I'll keep reporting on it as it comes out and it moves forward. Hopefully when it comes out now, it'll move forward unopposed. I think they came to a compromise that everybody can agree to. The fire code bill to adopt the new fire code just passed through the Senate committee. And I think it's a reasonably good compromise for everybody. Interesting thing is they had to put an amendment in there that the fire official wouldn't be able to prohibit traffic calming devices put in, which interesting battle for me. Interesting how the things come out. So the problem is that there was a city that wanted to put in roads that had a little bit of a wind to them and some big traffic circles in them so that the traffic would slow down a little bit. And the fire marshal came out and just says, nope, you can't do that. You're not allowed to do it. And there's nothing in the fire code that they could really hang their hat on, but it's still, they just says, no, you can't do it. And again, like so many other things, it's unfortunate to me that we have to go in and by statute say, no, you actually don't have the authority to do this. We should have a spot where we assume that they don't until there's a need. But anyway, it was put in the bill. None of the fire guys spoke against it. So I think as a general rule, they believe that's how it should be, that this particular fire chief was assuming authority he didn't have. But anyway, it's on its way off to the floor. So I suspect it'll pass without problems at this point. I just left a committee meeting, and in it there was a bill presented which at least for the moment is stalled. Like a lot of them, it's not dead, but I suspect this one is. We spoke against it. This particular bill would add an additional person to the list of those who can do continuing education. This particular one was dealing with masonry contractors, and we certainly don't have any problem with their group or what they would do and think they do good education. The concern was that we keep adding to that list, and we'll get back to the point to where it was years ago when the legislature said we need to do away with the continuing education because there's so many bad classes being offered. So we're opposed to the concept of bringing more and more of the classes in. If you have bricklayers in your area that are upset, tell them we're sorry. We're certainly not wanting to take any strike against them. They're a great association, do a great job. We help them make sure they get all of their training, anything they want uploaded and through Doppel and processed. So they shouldn't be disadvantaged at all. We just don't want to keep that list growing and growing. We think it's an ongoing problem.